All right, a warm welcome to you once again on Kakaki, the African Voice. And if you just joined us, you're still watching the program. And at this time, we look at the national dailies and the stories that are captured on the front pages of the newspapers, Nigerian newspapers. And we do have our reviewers who help us analyze the stories right here, seated with us in the studio. Abdul Majid Dahiru, the Alhaji in the house. And of course, he's joined by Dr. Austin Maho. It's a pleasure to have you both.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning, gentlemen. Right. Good to see you again.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's quickly look at what the newspapers have for us this morning. We start with Daybreak, which has on its headline, the main headline there, Nigeria on the way to Venezuela. PDP governors decry free fall of the Naira, rising cost of living, charge President Tinubu to rise up to challenge. And when you look at the headline just below the picture story there, you see the headline saying, Tell Tinubu to tackle hunger. Kano Emir urges First Lady.
Okay, let's see how the Daily Sun is leading this morning. It says, PDP governors tackle federal government over high cost of living, lament falling Naira, worsening insecurity. Phase out electricity subsidy, IMF tells federal government on page 25.
The People's Daily leads with the story, PDP governors speak on solutions to Nigeria's economy security challenges. That's on page 5. And that you simply can't miss that picture story of the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives Abuja chapter protesting against the new verification guidelines yesterday in Abuja.
All right, the leadership newspaper above its nameplate says California suffers 13 earthquakes in 25 minutes. Not a good one for that state. Okay, we look at fuel subsidy removal. We now know better. PDP governor speaking there as well.
Let's go to Nigerian News Direct now. High cost of living. PDP governors deride Tinubu's policies. Say Nigeria applying route of Venezuela. That's on page 3. And of course, Access Holdings appoints Bolaji Agbede as acting CEO. That's in the wake of the passing of Herbert Wigwe over the weekend in California.
The Nigerian Express is leading with Mayor of Kano to Tinubu's wife. Hunger, starvation worsened under your husband. Abuja mother of sextuplets seeks a federal government assistance, also making the paper.
The Nigerian pilot leads with the story that says Emefiele paid $6.2 million to international election observers. CBN Deputy Director testifies in court, says Emefiele approved release of $6.23 million for international election observers, discloses that the request for payment of funds was brought to his attention on January 8, 2023, identifies documents and says that he processed release of requested funds in accordance with due process.
All right, how is the daily asset leading this morning? Labour mulls 1 million naira minimum wage demand from government. Rivers approves 30,000 naira minimum wage for local government workers. LP tackles Abure over 3.5 billion naira from sale of nomination forms, allegations malicious, says party.
The Daily Times leads with this story. States to National Assembly, we want our own police now. Talking about the campaign for state police. And of course, at the bottom of the page, you will see the headline on the far left there, insecurity, inadequate infrastructure, stalling Nigeria's mining sector growth. That's attributed to Kalu.
And this Nigeria probe Wigwe's death. Rivers Reps Caucus urges U.S. Nigeria. Isiokpo community declares 7-day mourning on page 7 of the paper. And then 75 billion naira COVID-19 expenditure documents worthless. Reps Committee tackles Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investments, insists on submission of proper document or refund alleged mismanaged money.
The New National Star leads with the story on insecurity. Akume, Wike, Arase, Ribadu, Igali headline, NUJ New National Star Security Conference. And that's coming on page 7. But if you look at the headlines just beside the picture story you have there. Why Nigerian government should consider 1 million naira as minimum wage, NLC. That's also on page 7.
Nigeria's foreign reserves decreased to $24 billion, record low. That's IMF speaking there as Auditor General queries CBN over missing $4.5 billion. That's the leading story on the front page of First News Nigeria. Suffering under Tinubu government alarming, Kanu Emir tells First Lady.
The New Telegraph, let's see what it has. Economic hardship. Nigeria on the road to Venezuela. PDP governors. That's on pages 2 and 3, and they say they are working with APC-led federal government to bring down the cost of living. Tell your husband about hunger, starvation in Nigeria. Others. Emir Bayero tells First Lady. Nigeria teetering on brink of unrest. That's OB. And Buhari's reckless policies responsible for hardship. That's attributed to Adams Oshomole.
All right, we have other stories on the front page of the Blueprint. Also, Emefiele stories leading the paper as well. $6.2 million was paid to foreign election observers, says witness. Details on page 10 of the paper. And then Niger retailers' residents to Bago enforce move against Kanu, Lagos, Ibadan traders to avert food crisis. Prices shoot up by 200%. Market authorities blame banditry fuel subsidy removal. As Mayor Bayero says, people are hungry. Kanu traders crash prices on page 6 of the paper.
How does the Nigerian Tribune go this morning? It starts with the cost of living. Nigeria almost becoming Venezuela. PDP governors want Tinubu to initiate hardship-ending measures, insist on state police to end insecurity. All of that you'll find on page 2 of the paper.
And a whole lot of other stories as well. So let's bring in our reviewers now and look at these stories. Let's begin with Daybreak because the publisher is right here. Nigeria on the way to Venezuela. PDP governors decry free fall of the naira and rising cost of living. Not just your paper, so many other papers also has this as their leading story. Why did you choose to lead with the story? How important is it for the story to lead the papers today?
It's okay, thank you, Nkoli. The point is that, look, when you, as the media, we say we write history in a hurry. But this is the reality and the history of today's Nigeria. There's no other reality that every average Nigerian is going through. You know, it has to do with life, the basics of life, the necessity of life. In elementary economics, we say for a human being to survive, there are 3 basic necessities. You have food, shelter, clothing. And in that order, food comes first. Then, of course, we'll talk about security. It has been the dominant headline in all the major newspapers in the last, I can say, 2 months. The food crisis and the cost of living, the associated cost of living, you know, that every Nigerian is facing. And like we said here last week, this is as a result of government policy, the twin policy of devaluation of the naira, floating of the naira, and of course, removal of fuel subsidy. And as long as government insists on maintaining those 2 policies, the situation is not going to abate. It's getting worse by the day. You know, after 8 years of Buhari's administration, are now confronted with what we are facing now, when we expected that things will ease and things are not easing, what do you expect the average Nigerian to do? You know, each time I think about it, what comes to my mind is the story of King Rehoboam in First King in the
Bible.
In the Bible, you know, Rehoboam ascended the throne. First of all, he went to the elders to seek their advice on how to govern the state. And the elders told him that he should try as much as possible to lessen the yoke of the citizens because they suffered under King Solomon. And Rehoboam shook his head. I went to seek the advice of the IMF and World Bank. Sorry, of the youth. and the youth told him, double their yoke. And King Rehoboam actually came to the people and said, look, my little finger is fatter than my father's waist. Do you know what that means? My little finger is fatter than my father's waist. If my father scourged you with whip, I will scourge you with scorpion. That is what we are experiencing today. We are being scourged by the poisonous whip of fuel subsidy removal and floating of the naira. And the poison is killing all of us. If Buhari destroyed Nigeria and was taking it to the burial ground, Tinubu, it seems, doesn't know the implication of those twin policies. He is putting the final nail on the coffin of Nigerians. And there need to be, like I was telling Mojid has always advocated that, look, for things, if this is what caused this problem, why is it difficult for government to identify this problem and say, look, go for a reversal? There have been countries, especially Brazil, that implemented IMF conditionalities as a way of economic revival. And when they were not working, they reversed. They did a tactical withdrawal. What is wrong if the federal government, for instance, say, look, these policies that we are implementing is not working, and say, let's put a halt to it. Let's go back to the drawing table. Things cannot persist like this. Things cannot. It will be tanked. It has tanked. I'm no longer saying it will tank. It has tanked. And government needs to be very careful in dealing with the situation. There's no way things can continue like this. I was joking with Mojid when we were waiting in the waiting room before we came into the studio. You know, in my spare time I teach. I'm a lecturer. In months, years past, you know, students will normally come to you and say, sir, let me send you a recharge card. Do you know what I was saying in the past? Before that, if a student come to me and say, I want to send you a recharge card, I'll say, come here. Are you okay? Are you sane? Who should be sending who the recharge card? Me or you? But these days, if they come to me and say, sir, I want to send you a recharge card, I'll just be laughing. You understand?
Neither accepting nor rejecting.
It.
Yes.
Silence means consent in some quarters.
It shows the level of pauperization of the average Nigerian. Things I could easily afford before, I can't afford it. I was quite talking about fuel price. It seems government is stylishly, on a monthly basis, they'll add 10 naira. You look at it, oh, it's nothing, you buy. Every month, they are adding 10 naira now. In January, they added 10 naira. February, they've added 10 naira. Fuel was 640 in December. Today, it's 670. I'm sure before some places in Nigeria, they're already buying fuel for 700. And government I don't know, there seems to be no thinking and no attempt, to even address the situation. All what is coming out from the federal government, especially the person on the vice president, is motivational speech. And Nigerians are not interested in motivation. They want concrete actions and solutions to their problem. Don't give me motivational speech. Or the first lady she too is has become a motivational speaker. And I'm happy that when she went to Kano yesterday, the Emir of Kano gave it to her as it is. And that's what leadership, those who are close to the people, the institution close to the people, like our religious and traditional institution, should begin to speak truth to power at this point in time.
Okay. Alhaji Majid, I see you've been in a pensive mood all the while that Dr. Maho was speaking. And I see this headline that says families struggling to meet daily needs. For instance, I don't know how many families still eat eggs now. A crate of eggs is about 4,000 naira now, which used to be like 1,050 naira exactly a year ago.
I was pensive because he was just speaking to the issues. I mean, you begin to wonder, is there anything else to add to what Dr. Maho has said? Except, of course, to add that when the children of God faced famine, they turned to God. So I'm not surprised that the doctor has turned to pastor this morning by making copious references from the Holy
I just
Books.
hope that there will not be to a pencil Israel.
No, but again, the situation he painted, the scenario, actually led to a situation of Toyo 10 to Israel, because that was the beginning of the segregation of the nation of Israel, the kingdom of Israel. And as we speak, the 10 northern tribes of Israel are completely dispersed, and nobody knows their whereabouts because of this circumstance. So Nigeria should take a cue from this. And of course, every other country in the world, every nation have known that have been this misruled often end up like that. Talking about cost of living crisis, I don't know why we are still surprised that we are experiencing cost of living crisis. I'm happy that Nkoli is here because we had this conversation severally. When this policy, this obnoxious policy of subsidy removal was being canvassed, even before the elections, I called out the presidential candidates of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, and of course, Bola Tinubu of the APC. And I cautioned that this national consensus that is building around plunging Nigeria into energy insecurity arising from the imminent subsidy removal was a dangerous one. And that Nigerians have been deceived, have been brainwashed to believe that that which is good for them is actually bad. And so Nigerians actually supported subsidy removal, knowingly or unknowingly. It's just now that the reality of what subsidy removal means is hitting us hard, that people are beginning to have a change of mind. Another one, I want to call on everybody, whoever supported subsidy removal, whoever canvassed it for the position of knowledge, particularly our establishment economists, those that are neoliberal pundits, and the presidential candidates of the trading parties owe an apology to the Nigerian people. And so the PDP has come out yesterday through its governors forum.
Oh, they say now they know better.
And so they need to apologize first. They need to recant. They need to say, look, we are in error. When we also supported these twin policies of subsidy removal and floating of the exchange rates. And for emphasis, you cannot have food security without energy security. Because everything about production, whether it's agriculture or manufacturing, revolves around energy. And energy must be affordable. It has to be affordable. If it's not affordable, it will result into the kind of inflation
The IMF is telling Nigeria to remove subsidy on electricity tariff.
And you see, the IMF is experimenting with Nigeria. I don't blame the IMF. For them, Nigeria and some other countries that are willing to be are just economic labs, where they're experimenting the ideas of some of their intellectuals from the Washington School of, or the Chicago School of Economics. So I don't blame the IMF. It is you who put yourself in the position to be used as an economic guinea pig that should be blamed. I've never had IMF giving advice to the United States of America. I've not had IMF asking France, which is a major stakeholder in IMF. I've not had IMF telling France to stop subsidizing electricity.
Many of their CEOs.
I've never had IMF telling France to stop subsidizing electricity for citizens and for businesses. I've not had them say so. I've not had IMF go include Saudi Arabia to offer any form of economic advice. I've not had IMF discouraging European Union and the UK from imposing energy price caps when the cost of living crisis hit UK, for example. And there was a need to peg energy prices, which is another way for subsidy. I have not heard IMF telling them not to do that. So IMF comes to Nigeria and tells you to remove subsidies on electricity and petrol, which is your major source of energy. And in exchange for that, they're going to give you loan to do conditional cash transfer to the poorest of the poor. I don't blame them. It is the person giving them audience that I blame. And this is because our leaders are so lazy. They have refused to do the difficult task of good governance to make life easy for citizens. And I've said it severally. Any government that says and insists that it does not do business will be in the position that we are in now as Nigerians. I'll refer you again to Okonkwo and his father in Things Fall Apart, Ashebe Things Fall Apart. What is the story of Okonkwo's father? Unoka. Unoka was not able to do farming the way others were doing it. He was not a hunter. He was not a wrestler. He was a singer and a flutist. And so at the time, that couldn't yield him enough revenue to sustain his family. So it was like the government of the Concourse, of the Conco household, right? And so he had to resort to borrowing. So he borrowed so much that when people come to collect the one he's borrowed before, he would refer to you to say, what about owing you? I'm owing a person higher than I'm owing you, and it's not even disturbed me. The person will leave out of frustration. So he died in debt. And in fact, actually, he committed suicide. He died, a dishonorable death because he was not productive enough. But look at this one, Okonkwo. Kuko borrowed yam seedlings. He borrowed the yam seedlings from a very rich farmer and went to plant them. He didn't eat them. He didn't borrow it to give to his children to eat pounded yam. No. He planted, harvested. Even the harvest failed. But because he had already planted, he resuscitated the few he could salvage and replanted and became a very prosperous man with 3 wives. He was a hunter, he was a wrestler, he was a warrior. Because he was productive. He was a government, unlike his father, that was working, that was doing business or farming. Until the 36 states of the federation and the federal government begin to invest our monthly allocation from oil revenues into productive ventures directly by repudiating that obnoxious and fallacious philosophy of economies that says government has no business in business and substitute it with one that clearly puts government in the driver's seat as it's supposed to be and as it is the norm in the entire global space. Nigeria will keep being at the mercy of IMF and World Bank and being used as experiments to test for the ideas that later, I'm sure the same institutions will come out and tell you later, in future, when we are all perished, they'll come and tell you that, okay, it didn't really work. Let's try something else.
All right, Majid, you've always talked about this fuel subsidy removal and why government, in fact, in your words, that government should reverse that policy.
Back to where they met it.
You're still on that.
That's no alternative.
For me, really, for me.
That's no alternative.
Majid.
They took our lives away from us when they removed subsidy. Can't you see it?
For me, Majid, I don't even know where subsidy is because we've been removing subsidy
gradually.
Since how many years now?
Forever.
Yes. So I'm
Forever.
saying, okay, take it to where you met it.
From 11 naira.
Take it back
We are
to
now
that.
at
Was it 270?
Yes.
Take it back to the level you met it so that you can, as a government, when you are elected, if you can't move us forward,
Leave us where we are.
leave us where we are. So take us back to the levels you met us. Unfloat the naira now. One of the major issues driving the naira crazy is corruption. Importation has dropped in Nigeria. People are no longer importing because it's no longer sustainable. So what is driving the demand for dollar against the naira? If not
The politicians.
politically exposed persons who have too much naira now in their hands through monetary allocation that are besieging the BDCs to convert these monies into store of value because dollar has become the denomination for corruption. It has become the preferred denomination for political transactions. Look at the last elections. Almost all parties share dollars to delegates, and dollars were dispensed to political hitmen to use to mobilize votes at the state level. How can you have such a political class and expect the naira to have respect? And the president has shown no firm commitment to rein in his colleagues in the political class by taking the lead in committing class suicide. He has not shown that willingness. So if the president thinks that he can leave the system like the way it is, and you are pronouncing policy and it will work, then we'll be having this conversation probably from our graves in the next 10 years. Because the situation is there. No country survives energy insecurity. It is not possible.
All right, but Majid, this policy to start with, it wasn't not meant to save some money, and then put that money, plow that money back into the economy to reject the economy. So how much have we saved?
The best way to invest in the economy is through subsidy of energy. That was the most sustainable and effective investment in the economy. So when someone tells you you want to save money from subsidy removal to invest in the economy, it's like saying you want to close your nostrils and prepare from breathing, so that air that you are breathing, want to now put it in some other activities or something like that. You will die. It's an investment. Let me tell you. Germany noticed that China was willing to overtake them in the global market in the export competitiveness index. What did Germany do? They understood that Chinese manufacturers have certain advantages that they do not have. Most especially general subsidies in energy. So the German government imposed a subsidy of 85 billion euros for electricity for homes and manufacturers in 2023 to shore up their export competitiveness. Because when you give subsidy in this manner, it makes their own production too low in cost, and so the output will be lower in prices, so they can compete with China in the global market and make more money. An investment in subsidy in energy is an investment in the economy. It's like you're investing in productivity. The export competitiveness of the products and services arising from this support will come back to the government by way of tax, expansion of revenue, expansion of employment.
It has a multiplier effect.
So government will make that money back. It's not if it's a grant or an aid. That is the most effective investment in the economy. You know what the most subsidy in Nigeria? It's not to save money for anybody, as you have seen. It was because that was the only thing the government was actually spending money on. In fact, I made the point on this program.
Yes.
So don't be deceived. You have 36 state governors coming together to tell you that subsidy is bad and you think it is true. How can it be true? Governors that cannot give the required autonomy to local government to function. The same people came together and told you and I that subsidy is bad for you. Don't worry, let us move it. We'll substitute something better. That should have been a red flag to tell you that no. Anything the 36 state governors of Nigeria come together
and support
is a bad thing. It's not a good thing for anybody. That is what we have seen. So they've abdicated the core responsibility of governance. And that is the ripple effect we are experiencing today. They should revise the policy.
All right, Moji, Doctor, let's look at this again. Moji had talked about it, or you talked about it earlier. Hunger starvation wasn't under your husband. Is there anything you think the president's wife can do about this? She's not the one leading the country.
She should go on with her motivational speeches. Hopefully, it will have what do you call it? A consoling effect on some people. But to me, all what she's saying is just means nothing to the average Nigerian, means nothing to the hungry Nigerian. What we need is concrete action. Moji has laid out, what needs to be said about this issue. We cannot. You talk about, is the political class, are they willing to commit what he has called class suicide, drawing from Amilcar Cabral's thesis on the subject? Class suicide simply means, are they willing to forego even some of their privileges for the interest of the poor masses of this country? Or do they think that they can continue the way they have been going in the last 24 years and think there won't be a backlash? I've always, in my spare time, I think about the average Nigerians. I'm like, why is it that we are so docile as Nigerians? Why is it that when an average Nigerian is pushed to the wall, instead of bouncing back, he would rather break through the wall? It will get to a stage that they will bounce back. So it is it's actually in the interest of the ruling elite to begin to consider how to control the detonation that is bound to happen, rather than allowing it to go off hand without anybody's control. Because the situation cannot continue. He spoke about, the dollar, the dollarization of the Nigerian economy, and what is driving this high cost of dollar in the market is the politicians. Over time, we know that once governors receive allocation, they have their BDCs they channel it into and convert. The dollar has become a store of value. It's poor people who are bearing the brunt of the rising cost of the dollar because they don't have naira to convert to dollars. And at times, when I listen to some people, like Oshomole was trying to do yesterday, trying to blame the previous administration, and the revelation that is coming out of the Buhari administration. There's so much revelation now of what Buhari did. In my head, I think, did we ever at that point in time think that most of these things were going on during the Buhari administration? The same thing could be happening right now as we speak.
Without us knowing again.
Yes, without us knowing. Until the end of the administration, before it will all come to light.
All right, we have to leave this
this morning.
Interestingly, the federal allocation for states have increased. Yet we are not seeing any.
It has not increased.
We are not seeing any commensurate
in terms of value and terms.
But our time is up on this.
Please, it has not increased. You know why? First, the naira has devalued, such that what 1 trillion could actually purchased a year before, it's no longer today. Inflation has also eaten up the so-called excess. So what you have is worthless bundles of naira that has less value than it was when subsidy was in place and when the
naira was stable.
exchange rate
So that's why we're not
fluctuated.
feeling the impact
Yes.
at all.
Okay,
All right,
so
So it's
gentlemen.
an all-round wrong policy.
We have to go, gentlemen. Thank you very much. It's a passionate moment, really. And we're going to just need to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Alhaji Majid. Dr. Maho, it's good having you again.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.